Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this beautiful morning. Hope and pray that everyone must have a wonderful journey. Those spiritual warriors who made our journey successful today was Ishwar Krishna Prabhu, Yamuna Sundari Mataji, I.V. Gautam, Patit Pavan Prabhu, Amol and Smita Panchpande, Sachinandan Krishna Prabhu, Sitala Priya Devidasi, Girivaridari Prabhu, Raghav Chaitanya Prabhu, Benyamino Prabhu, Manani Mataji, Samantan Swastika Panchal, Saraswati Devidasi. Become late. She was so punctual, joining at 5 o'clock. Somehow or other, Krishna showed her to make her humble. Haribol. Manmatha Anand Prabhu, Shundri Radha Mataji, Tapti Ghosh Mataji, Janki Khan Prabhu, Labanga Latika Mataji, Pratmesh Prabhu, Shreya Devidasi, Sumitra Radha Mataji, Devendra Krishna Prabhu, Divyan Sin Saloni, Sweddi Prabhu, Parmanand Hari Prabhu, Nandam Priya Mataji, Nadia Kumar Prabhu, Rag Bhakti Devidasi, Kamini Priya Mataji, Sankarsan and Majari, Pandurang Devdas Prabhu, Damodarati Mataji, Uttam Bhakta Prabhu, Vallabhi Mataji, Rajendra Prabhu, Kasturi Manjari Devidasi, Pranath Gopal Prabhu, Radhika Prem Devidasi, Vraj Vinod Prabhu, Anand Vinodini Devidasi, Madhvi Gopi Mataji, Tulsi Priya Mataji, Kamal Priya Mataji, Abhay Joshi Prabhu, Madhav Charan Prabhu, Ananya Bhakti Devidasi, Amal Nam Prabhu, Karunamai Mataji, Barsana Rani Mataji, Shrikant Survase Prabhu, Vijay Keshav Prabhu, Rashmi Mataji, Kirti Prabhu, Mahiti Konda, Radha Vallabh Prabhu, Advait Prabhu, Rashakita Prabhu, Anand Radhika Mataji, Lalit and Josna Vara, Ravi Pipilya Prabhu, Sugandh Raj Prabhu, Aradhana Devidasi, Manoj Kapoor Prabhu, Balram Prabhu, Lekha Mataji, Abhay Charan Prabhu, Shukruti Devidasi, Rajesh and Sweta, Sri Kumar Prabhu, Shyam Sundar Prabhu, Harikatha Devidasi, Pitambar Priya Prabhu, Hemant Gini Chauhan Mataji, Nishan Sharma, Sumit Prabhu, Suchitra Mataji, Purvi Parmar Mataji didn't join today, Haribo. Prem Priya Padma Mataji, Amit Prabhu, Nakul Grover Prabhu, Sarmeshta Sahi, and Carmen Ortega. So let's hear the wonderful song before we read the prayers of Lord Shiva. Haribo.
জীবন বাহিত কিসে যদি প্রভুপাদ হইতো তবে কি হইতো এই জীবন বাহিত কিসে নিতাই গৌরেরা অপার করুণা হে দিত সকল দেশে জীবন বাহিত কিসে পাশ্চাত্যেরা যত পাবি দুরাচারী শূন্যবাদী মায়াবাদী তাদের উদ্ধারা কন্দ কি হইত এই জীবন পাহিত কিসে জানাসি বেলায় হরিণা তাদের রানিকাতে কোন জানাসি বেলায় হরিণা সব্য জীবারূপে গাড়িতে তাদেরা হইতো আগুয়া ইয়াদি প্রভুপাদ হইতো তবে কি হইতো এই জীবন পাহিত কিসে দেশে দেশে হরি বিগ্রহ সেবা আরতি রাত্রি দিনে দেশে দেশে হরি বিগ্রহ সেবা আরতি রাত্রি দিনে রথযাত্রা আদি মহোৎসব শুভ শিখায় তা কোন জানে ইয়াদি প্রভুপাদ না হইতো তবে কি হইতো এই জীবন পাহিত কিসে গীতা ভাগবত চৈতন্য চরিত প্রেমামৃত রস সারো গীতা ভাগবত চৈতন্য চরিত প্রেমামৃত রস সারো কালন সুন্দর সরল করিয়া কে বুঝাইতা যদি প্রভুপাদ হইতো তবে কি হইতো এই জীবন পাহিত কিসে কত কষ্ট শাহী প্রীতমনে রাহি কে বদিত হরিণা কে দিতা মনেরা পুরী বৃন্দাবন মায়াপুর মত কে দিতা মনেরা পুরী বৃন্দাবন মায়াপুর মত ইয়াদি প্রভুপাদ হইতো তবে কি হইতো এই জীবন পাহিত কিসে পরম মঙ্গল শ্রী চৈতন্য মহাপ্রভু আচারে প্রচারে সদা মন্দিরে কে করিতা নিয়োজনা আচারে প্রচারে সদা মন্দিরে কে করিতা নিয়োজনা ইয়াদি প্রভুপাদ হইতো তবে কি হইতো এই জীবন পাহিত কিসে প্রেম কল্পতারু নিতাই করেরা স্মরণ করে যদি প্রভুপাদ হইতো তবে কি হইতো এ জীবন বাহিতা কিসে যদি প্রভুপাদ হইতো তবে কি হইতো এ জীবন বাহিতা কিসে নিতাই গৌরেরা অপার করুণা খেদিত সকল দেশে নিতাই গৌরেরা অপার করুণা খেদিত সকল দেশে যদি প্রভুপাদ হইতো তবে কি হইতো এই জীবন বাহিতা কিসে
Thank you very much, Ishwar Krishna Prabhu, for playing a wonderful song composed by His Holiness Jai Pataka Swami Maharaj. It's very glorious to hear. It gives so much pleasure in our heart by hearing this. And we can imagine what kind of life we should have lived. That's really a fact. So we will continue reading the prayer of Lord Shiva. Other day, 424, text 60, and we were in the middle of the purport. So we will continue from there. In Bhagavad Gita 9:4, the Lord clearly says, Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina mat sthani sarva bhutani nachaham tesva avistitaha. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. This verse of Bhagavad Gita explains that the Lord is spread everywhere by virtue of his Brahman future. Everything rests in him, yet he is not there. The conclusion is that without Bhakti Yoga, without rendering devotional service to the Lord, even an impersonalist cannot understand the Brahma Tattva, the Brahman future. In the Vedanta Sutra, it is stated, Atato Brahma Jignasa. This means that Brahman, Paramatma, or Parbrahman should be understood. In Srimad Bhagavatam also, the absolute truth is described as the one without a second. But he is realized in three features: impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality Godhead is the ultimate issue. And in this verse, Lord Shiva confirms that ultimately the absolute truth is a person. He clearly says, Tattvam Brahma Param Jyotir Akasam Eva Vustram. There is a common example. A successful businessman may have many factories and offices, and everything rests on his order. If someone says that the entire business rests on such and such a person, it does not mean that the person is bearing all the factories and offices on his head. Rather, it is understood that by his brain or his energetic expansion, the business is running without interruptions. Similarly, it is the brain and energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead that carry on the complete manifestation of the material and the spiritual worlds. The philosophy of monism, explained here very clearly, adjusts itself to the fact that the supreme source of all energy is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. This is described very clearly. It also stated how the impersonal future of Krishna can be understood. O son of Kunti, Arjuna, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and moon, the syllabus Om, and the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man. Bhagavad Gita 7:8. In this way, Krishna can be understood as the mystic power in everything. Lord Shiva continue 424, text 61. My dear Lord, you have manifold energies, and these energies are manifested in manifold forms. With such energies, you have also created this cosmic manifestation. And although you maintain it as if it were permanent, you ultimately annihilate it. Although you are never disturbed by such changes and alterations, the living entities are disturbed by them. And therefore they find the cosmic manifestation to be different or separated from you. My Lord, you are always independent, and I can clearly see this fact. Purport. It is clearly explained that Lord Krishna has multi-energies, which can be grouped into three, namely the external energy, internal energy, and the marginal energy. There are also different cosmic manifestations, namely the spiritual world and the material world, as well as different type of living entities. Some living entities are conditioned and others are eternally free. The eternally free living entities are called the Nitya Mukta, for they never come in contact with the material energy. However, some living entities are conditioned in this material world, and thus they think themselves separated from the Supreme Lord. Due to their contact with the material energy, their existence is always troublesome. Being always in distress, the conditioned soul consider the material energy to be very much disturbing. This fact is explained by a Vaishnava Kavi or poet. Krishna bhuli sai jiva anadi bahir mukha at eva maya tare deya samsara dukha. When the living entity forgets the Supreme Lord and wants to enjoy himself independently, imitating the Supreme Lord, he is captured by the false notion that he is the enjoyer and is separated from the Supreme Lord. This material energy is therefore very much troublesome to the spiritual energy, the living entity. But the material energy is never troublesome to the Supreme Lord. Indeed, for the Supreme Lord, both material and spiritual energy are the same. In this verse, Lord Shiva explains that the material energy is never troublesome to the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is always independent. But because the living entities are not independent, due to their false idea of becoming independently happy, the material energy is troublesome. Consequently, the material energy creates differentiation. Because the Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand this, they want to be relieved from the material energy. However, because a Vaishnava philosopher is in full knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he finds no disturbance even in the material energy. This is because he knows how to utilize the material energy for the service of Lord. In the government, the criminal department and civil department may appear different in the eyes of the citizens, but in the eyes of the government, both departments are one and the same. The criminal department is troublesome for the criminal, but not for the obedient citizen. Similarly, this material energy is troublesome for the conditioned soul, but it has nothing to do with the liberated souls who are engaged in service of the Lord. Through the Purusha avatar, Mahavishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, created the whole cosmic manifestation. Simply by breathing out all the universes, the Lord creates and maintains the cosmic manifestation as Lord Vishnu. Then as Sankarshan, he annihilates the cosmic manifestation. Yet, despite the creation, maintenance, and destructions of the cosmos, the Lord is not affected. The various activities of the Lord must be very disturbing to the tiny living entities. But since the Lord is supremely great, he is never affected. Lord Shiva or any other pure devotee can see this clearly without being blinded by Veda, Buddhi, or differentiation. For a devotee, the Lord is the Supreme Spirit Soul. Since he is supremely powerful, his various powers are also spiritual. For a devotee, there is nothing material. For material existence only means forgetfulness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So as long as we remember Krishna all the time, we can live in the spiritual world despite we are living in the material world. And that's what Prabhupada came to give us. So Lord Shiva continues 424:62. My dear Lord, your universal form consists of all five elements: the senses, mind, intelligence, false ego, which is material, and the Paramatma, your partial expansion, who is the director of everything. Yogis other than the devotees, namely the Karma Yogi and Jnana Yogi, worship you by their respective actions in their respective positions. It is stated both in the Vedas and in the Shastras that are corollaries of the Vedas, and indeed everywhere, that it is only you who are to be worshipped. That is the expert version of all the Vedas. Purport. In a previous verse, Lord Shiva wanted to see the form of the Lord, which the devotees are always interested in. There are other forms of the Lord manifest in the material world, including Brahma and other demigods, and these are worshipped by materialistic persons. In the second canto, third chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated that those who desire material benefits are recommended to worship different types of demigods. And in conclusion, the Bhagavatam recommends akamaha sarva kamava moksha kama udaradehi tivrena bhakti yogena yajate purusham param. Bhagavatam 2.3.10 state, the devotees, the jnanis, who are known as the mokshakam, and the karmis, who are known as sarvakam, are all aspiring to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. Even when one performs yagnas, as stated here, kriya kalapai, he should always remember that the demigods are but agent of the Supreme Lord. They are not independent. Actually, the worshipful Lord is Vishnu, Yagneswar. Thus, even when different demigods are worshipped in the Vedic and Tantric sacrifices, the actual goal of sacrifice is Lord Vishnu. Therefore, in Bhagavad Gita 9.23, it is said, whatever a man may sacrifice to other gods, O son of Kunti, it is really meant for me alone, but is offered without true understanding. Thus, the worshipper of various demigods also worship the Supreme Lord, but they do so against the regulative principles. The purpose of the regulative principle is to satisfy Lord Vishnu. In the Vishnu Puran 389, the very same thing is confirmed. Here it is clearly mentioned that the karmi, jnani, or yogi, in fact, everyone worship Lord Vishnu if he is actually expert in knowledge of Vedas and Tantras. The word Kovida is very significant, for it indicates the devotees of the Lord. Only the devotees know perfectly that the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu is all pervading. Within the material energy, he is represented by the five material elements, as well as the mind, intelligence, and false ego. He is also represented by another energy, the living entities. And all these manifestations in the spiritual and in material world combined are but representations of the different energy of the Lord. The conclusion is that the Lord is one and that he is expanded in everything. This is understood by the Vedic version. Sarvam Kav Idam Brahma. One who knows this concentrate all his energy in worshipping Lord Vishnu. Lord Shiva continues 424:63. My dear Lord, you are the only supreme person, the cause of all causes. Before the creation of this material world, your material energy remains in a dormant condition. When your material energy is agitated, the three qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, act. And as a result, the total material energy, egotism, ether, air, fire, water, earth, and all the various demigods and saintly persons becomes manifest. Thus, the material world is created. Purport. If the whole creation is one, that is nothing but the Supreme Lord or Vishnu, then why do the expert transcendentalists make such categories as are found in the above verse? Why do learned and expert scholars distinguish between matter and spirit? In answer to these questions, Lord Shiva says that spirit and matter are not creation of various philosophers, but are manifested by Lord Vishnu, as described in this verse. Tvam eka adaya purushaha. Spiritual and material categories are made possible by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But actually, there are no such distinctions for the living entities who are eternally engaged in the service of the Lord. There is only a material world for those who wants to imitate the Lord and become enjoyers. Indeed, the material world is nothing but forgetfulness of the original Supreme Personality of God, the creator of everything. The distinction between matter and spirit is created by the sleeping energy of the Lord when the Lord wants to give some facility to those living entities who want to imitate the Lord in his enjoyment. It is only for them that this material world is created by the dormant energy of the Lord. For instance, sometimes children want to imitate their mother and cook in the kitchen. And at such a time, the mother supplies them with some toys so that the children can imitate her cooking. Similarly, when some of the living entities want to imitate the activities of the Lord, this material cosmic manifestation is created for them by the Lord. The material creation is therefore caused by the Lord through his material energy. We won't be able to finish. So we should stop. We should be always punctual in our activity. With those thoughts, always remain blissful, happy, joyful, and totally fearless. And whoever you come across, give them a kind word that their life can also become successful, enjoyable, and totally fearless. With those thoughts, I would like to offer my humble obeisances at the desk of these wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who take so much austerity and becoming more and more steady, getting more and more taste chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And it's so nice. And we will see this purity will spread everywhere in Houston slowly and slowly. Every one of you must open one center, Haribo. So those devotees who joined from Houston, from India, New Jersey, Boston, Virginia, Boise, St. Louis, Alachua, Montreal, College Station, San Jose, Toronto, Detroit, Brampton, Ontario. Vanchakalpatarvasya kripa
Vasindhubhyo cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
Thank you
Nirmal
very
ki
much,
jai, Srila
Prabhu.
Prabhupada ki jai, Shyam Sundar Prabhu ki jai, Hare Krishna Prabhu.